Thomas Stöcker is a German automotive designer and concept artist based in Berlin. Since 2011, he is working in the exterior design department for Volkswagen in Wolfsburg. Furthermore, he has gained much work experience in the field of corporate, product and furniture design, previously living and working in London. He holds a degree in industrial and communication design from the University of Art in Braunschweig, Germany.
Okay, hello everybody. I want to thank you first for the warm welcome here, and it's my first time in Finland. I've never been to here, and let alone this far in the north. And what I want to do today is I want to talk about our design development process at Volkswagen. This won't be an engineering presentation and it won't be a marketing presentation, but it will give you an insight on our everyday work life. So, let's start. This is a sketch of Wolfsburg. So the Volkswagen headquarters are in Wolfsburg, Germany. So what you can see here is the tower. That's where our board members sit, our chairman of the board, Martin Winterkorn. And then you see a bit of the factory, and the factory is actually really big. It's the biggest automobile factory in the world. And Volkswagen itself is the biggest automotive manufacturer in Europe. And in the end, there in the background, you can see our old factory building. It's a power plant building with the 4 chimneys. And this is really a symbol for Volkswagen and for Wolfsburg, as the Eiffel Tower is to Paris. And they were planning to put the design studio in there, but that eventually never happened. And now they are putting a dance club in. It's also quite cool. So we have a creative network. We have the factories all around the world, and we also have a creative network that spans around the world, with our main headquarters in Wolfsburg. And actually the symbol shifted. But also research and development. I'm based in Wolfsburg with our brand design chief, Klaus Bischoff, and our group design chief, Walter de Silva. And then we have different studios in all around the world. There's advanced design studios in Potsdam, that's clear near Berlin, so to capture all of the Berlin capital trends, and one in Santa Monica in the US. And then we have regional studios that for the regional markets, one in Sao Paulo for the Brazilian market, and also for the very important Chinese market in Shanghai and Changshu. And the one in Puebla in Mexico, that's mostly color and trim. So all the cars are mostly developed in Wolfsburg. So I want to start with form follows function, and that's a famous quote almost everybody heard before. That means that the form always follows the function, that it's not really styling, that it's the end product is kind of process oriented. Yeah, so it's as if an engineer would say, okay, we need this part to work, and that therefore it looks like it, but it's not really styled. At Volkswagen, however, form and function are inseparably linked. That means that what we do is we want to try to show the innovation we have in our products through the design. The heritage of Bauhaus, however, this clearliness, the reduction, the simplicity, the logic that lies in simplicity. Yeah, it's really hard to achieve a product that's very simple. It's really hard to work. And that's still a heritage that connects us with Bauhaus. So then I want to talk about our brand values. I promise this is just short, because the second part of the presentation will be the design development process, and this will be really fun. So our brand values are innovative, valuable, and responsible. And from these brand values, we can translate them into design values. Our design is about. So we have very unique cars at Volkswagen, we have very original cars, and therefore, this means they are timeless. And so this leads back to responsibility. Yeah, and this is even more important when you think about environmental issues. We are living in a society that is kind of has a mentality to throw things away. It's even more important. So, and from these design values, we can translate these into form principles. Yeah, we have a very strong horizontal alignment in Volkswagen cars. So we have monolithic volumes. It's always a sympathetic phase. Yeah, and we have a certain logic. And in this simplicity, there is logic. So, I'm sure you all recognize these products, and you know which brand is behind these products. So we're talking about brand identity here. It's a global design. These products are all global designs, as well as a Volkswagen Golf is to Volkswagen. You instantly recognize the car. That's what we're looking for. You need to recognize the car. You need the design to connect with the brand. So, progress. Progress is super important to us designers because we all want to get things, or to see things get better. Yeah, and design and innovations are connected. Innovations have, in fact, a huge influence on the design. So nowadays, you have, in cars especially, you have more and more safety regulations, you have more modules that all have influence on the package of a car. Yeah, the customer has expectations. And what we do is, we want to show this progress through design, so the customer can experience this progress. So when you look at this huge interface here, that you know from smartphones, yeah, think about the success story of the smartphones, I can assure you that interface design will be the most important factor in interior design in the next 10 years. And when you think back 20 years ago, yeah, you had lots of buttons in the car, and lots of buttons meant that you bought lots of extras, so you can make your neighbor jealous. Nowadays you want to make things more simple and more easy to use. Also you have new materials, yeah, that also have an influence on the design. And you want, some of them you want to hide, as well as modules like the airbag. Yeah, you don't want people to see this, you want a nice shape. And some you want to make it visible, yeah, like this interface. So precision. So German design is really quality oriented. And we have a simple design, but that doesn't mean it's boring. But we achieve a valuable car through precision. So that means that we have very precise surfaces. We emphasize these surfaces. Then we have a conclusive line structure. So we have lines that run around the car. So when you look at this line here in the front, it connects logically here in the headlight, then it runs here into the body side. Also, you don't see it in the back, but in the back it also goes around the taillights and then back. So this structures the car, so into a light and a dark volume. So there's a logic behind it. There's no magic lines that kind of disappear somewhere. Then we have these precise surfaces, very valuable details. So look at these highly innovative headlights. There's also the indicators integrated. There's the turning light when you go around the corner is included, so you don't have extra elements that kind of stack up together. So you want to show, through the simplicity, you want to show the integrity of the engineering underneath. And we have very fine shut lines, and fine shut lines are a matter of quality. So let me just tell you a bit story about the Golf. When we were talking about brand identity before, that means for the Golf it needs to be 100% Volkswagen, it needs to be 100% Golf, and it also needs to be 100% successor of the old Golf. So there's a lot of responsibility for us designers involved, because we're coming from somewhere and we're going somewhere. So we're telling a story here. And the Golf is produced for almost 40 years now. And kind of it needs to be the success story. This needs to go on. And so it's an evolutionary car. And an evolutionary car means it can't be revolutionary. So therefore it becomes an icon. And there's only 3 true icons left that are still produced today. And this is the Land Rover Defender, then you have the Porsche 911, and you have the Golf that kept its silhouette over the years. So you need to be able to spot the Golf from 100 meters away in the fog. So you can't make it a totally different car in the next step. So this design DNA I was talking about before. It is so wide that it enables us to have a very wide range of cars, with very different characters. And every car needs to be a Volkswagen. And this needs to be constantly checked in our everyday work. So you have the Beetle as probably the most famous car in the world. So think of Herbie. Then you have the Golf as the most important car, as a volume seller to us. And then you have cars like the Up or the Cross Coupe. So for us, it's a task of keeping this balance. It's a matter of balance between one character at the one side and keeping it in line with the Volkswagen brand DNA and the family itself. So I was talking about this horizontal alignment. So we have these strong horizontal lines everywhere in the car. When you see here in the grille or here in the bottom air intake. So it's up. It's a sympathetic face, like from small animal babies. You instantly like them, and it's sympathetic. And every Volkswagen needs to be sympathetic. That's very important. Then here in the Beetle, you have this strong pronunciation in horizontality again in the bottom. You have this happy face in the hood. You have bigger lights here. And with the Golf, it's still happy, but it's looking self-confident. It can look self-confident and needs to be happy. But even here with the XL1, you have a completely different architecture in that car. It's an extreme car. But still you see clearly this horizontal alignment, and it belongs to the Volkswagen family. So from the smallest to the biggest car, we need to keep the cars in touch and in constant alignment with this brand DNA. So now we're talking about the design process, and who's a student still here in this in the audience? Okay, so this may be quite interesting then. So the XL1 is a really extreme car. It's I'm sure some of you might have seen it already. It's the most efficient car in the world right now, and it's truly innovative. So it really reflects our core brand values. So this is a good example for this. So the car has been built it's constructed like you would build a sports car. It has a very low center of gravity. It's shorter than a Polo, and it's low as a Lamborghini Gallardo. So imagine, like a car with these proportions, it looks really spectacular. When I saw one driving in Wolfsburg, it was like a spaceship. So probably it's a car from the future we built right now. So all the design here in this car follows the laws of aerodynamics. So you have like this dolphin shape, you have long curvature, and you have these covered wheels here, which is good for the aerodynamics. Then you have our innovations here. You can clearly see the horizontal alignment, highly innovative LED headlamps. And then I was talking about form and function to be linked. Then you have these taillights here. And these taillights are the brake lights and the indicators and the fog lights, but they are also this sharp edge here. This sharp edge serves as an aerodynamic feature. So these are linked. So you think about how can you integrate things? How can you connect them to each other? Okay, so in the design process itself, we're starting with the mood boards. So no one really has an idea what it's about. So of course we hear from the engineers, this car needs to be efficient. What do we want to achieve with it? Actually, the XL1, it comes from 1 liter. It's so efficient, it takes 0.9 liters per 100 kilometer. And of course you want to communicate this, so you make a mood board. And then of course you have cool shapes like airplanes. We all like airplanes and spaceships. Most of us were Star Trek and Star Wars fans. And we wanted to draw these Star Wars ships, So that's how you come to design. That's how you end up in this industry, mostly. Then you have these sharks. You take the sharks because it's a streamlined architecture. They have really soft skin. It's optimized. And then you connect them with consumer electronics. That's also an inspiration because they are super detailed and super innovative. In fact, the mirrors on this car, it's cameras, it's no mirrors. So then the sketching process starts. We start with a blank piece of paper, and that's really important. So no one really has an idea what it is about. And you could think of this as a casting show, like you see on TV. So we have 60 to 80 designers. When it's a really important car, let's say it's a Golf and the Fit, on every studio is involved. So there's a competition, so everybody's fighting on their own, because everybody wants to see his design on the road in the end. So this is where you put down your basic ideas. And they are really widespread because you don't want to limit yourself, at least not in the future, not in the beginning, sorry. So we're looking for a shape that reflects this inspiration we had in the beginning, and let's say the task that's been given to us in the beginning. Yeah, so now you see this is a sketch that has nothing to do with the car in the end, but you can see this mono volume, which is good for aerodynamics, so you slowly develop it. So this is a sketch that was in the end pretty much chosen. Yeah, remember there's like weeks involved, weeks between the start of a project and these sketch presentations we show to our bosses and to board some members sometimes. So they choose a sketch, and this is mostly the lucky one, and but it's not the only one. So we have a couple of designers involved still, because you don't want to limit yourself. So usually 3 to 4 to 5 sketches will be further developed. Yeah. So these are the renderings, and the renderings are really cool because, I mean, this first phase is really like the one we enjoy the most, because you can drink coffee, you can listen to your personal music, you can really like think in every direction, and then in the end it's all about the fun to draw. Yeah? So in these renderings, you start to kind of describe the surfaces, yeah, with light and shadow. You really want to make them understandable, because if you don't understand it, nobody can choose your sketch. The same is for the interior design. You have certain inspiration. I don't know if you see this, but this is a plane. And this plane is basically the inspiration for this middle console. So in interior, you start with the basic proportions and the structures, and then you slowly go into the details. So then we start working in data. And that shows that we are not entirely free in our process. Because you have, of course, you have a wheelbase, you have a package underneath, you need to have engineering people coming in and telling you what's possible and what's not. This is a constant fight, actually, because, of course, we want to make all the cars low and wide and really aggressive and extreme, but it's mostly not possible, because especially in this project, it underwent everything followed the aerodynamics. So then you start up building surfaces, and these surfaces are kind of pretty rough in the beginning, although it looks detailed, but it's kind of to get a feel for the first kind of, for the volume of the car. Yeah, and because in exterior design especially, proportions comes first, always. And then comes the theme, and then come the details. But now more and more people get involved. Yeah? So this ends up in a pretty detailed virtual reality rendering. We can really see the proportions and the form already. But you can also see that this highlight is pretty wobbly here, and you want to work on it. But this is really just a basic idea, because what happens then? Okay, I come to that afterwards. But the same principle is here in interior design. Yeah? So you get the basic layout first, then you can also have the buttons, the middle console, and the interface also integrated. So people from interface design, from ergonomics, start and come in and tell you what they need. And then we start building a model. And this is just a basic proportion model, it's a form model. And the model is super important because you can't design on the screen. It's impossible, you need to touch it. You need to be able to walk around the car so you can get a feel for the proportions. That you can take your time, yeah? That you can actually start understanding it. And this model serves as a base for a clay model. So we were thinking, because I was planning to bring a bit of clay, it's amazing material, yeah, but it looks a bit like plastic explosives. So that was probably not a good idea to go with it through the airport security. So sorry for that, but I mean, you can take it off, and that's really important here. It's a material that is soft, and you heat it, and you apply it, yeah, it's not a reversible process, because what we do now is we do this for months. Yeah, it's not like you push a button and you have a design, but we do this for months because this is a really important phase. We work together with clay modelers, and these are really artists. These guys have like decades of experience. So what the pencil is to us in this first phase, to put it on paper, we have tape now. It's like, yeah, it's tape. So we lay the basic lines of our design and put it onto the model. So the modelers work to these lines. Because you can't stand there and say, like, oh, you drop this roof by 20 mil. So he's like, what do you mean? Yeah, show me. So basically, this is our communication tool. So this, as I said, this goes on for weeks and months. It's an amazing process. Yeah, it's still a dream job. But sometimes we're covered in clay, like to our knees. And then when finally the modelers leave, we have a couple hours in the evening to walk around the model. So this model will be covered in Dynog. And Dynog is a foil, it's an elastic foil that looks like paint when you apply it. So you have, like, with tape you can fake air intakes, you can put the shut lines to the car, yeah, you can fake the grille and the headlamps. And now the model is pretty much prepared for presentation. And remember, we have a couple of these with all different designs, so probably mostly 4 to 6. And then these are shown sometimes already to the board, but in the process we go outside. So we have a big backyard covered with high walls, so where we can see the model in daylight. And this is really important because only then you can recognize the surfaces. You can kind of judge it. Same applies to interior, and most people are surprised when they see this for the first time that even the interior of the car is completely made out of clay. So imagine all the details, and yeah, these guys are pretty much sculptors. So then color and trim sets in. I mean, they start a bit shortly after the exterior and interior design development. And this is also really important because this is something you touch, that you get in contact with. And these need to be materials that are in use for a couple of years. Yeah? So this is a place where you actually live. The exterior communicates the design to the outside, but the interior is where you sit in. And these guys are fashion and textile designers, and they create different moods. Yeah, you can see that how with basic textures and with different textures and colors you can create basic moods. And for this project, of course, you don't want it to look like aggressive. You want to kind of look like it's efficient. So these moods and these characters, they need to be like in harmony with the interior, and the interior needs to be in harmony with the exterior. So then you get, when the model is finished, you have the virtual reality model. This is kind of a summary of all the work you've done. And you can open the doors, you can zoom in, and then you have the design model in the end. And we have 4 of these because design is not mathematics. One design is never perfect. you need to be able to judge it. You can be totally convinced by your own design, but in the end you have to show it to the board members. And when it's shown to them, they select a model that eventually goes to production then. Now we have a sitting bug here, same for interior, and this is really astounding because the exterior model, when it's outside, you can't even tell the difference. It's a hard model, it's a couple of millions expensive, and you can't tell if it's a real car or not. And the same here. Sometimes you sit inside and you kind of push buttons, or you want to switch on the radio because you forget that you're sitting inside there, and suddenly you have the button in your hands. But it's really important to have these, to be able to touch, to kind of feel the volume, and to kind of check the ergonomics. Well then, when it's finished, it's presented, and this was in Qatar. So you see a very lucky group design chief, Walter de Silva. At the time this was Ulrich Hackenberg, member for head of technical development, our chairman of the board, Winterkorn, and our chairman of the supervisory board, Ferdinand Piech. And Qatar was the right place to present this car because they are really open to innovations. So you see the Sheikh's wife. Okay, you can't see her, but she's sitting inside, and we get really good feedback on this car. So people really like it. And this is also, this is looks like from a Star Wars movie, doesn't it? So, and then in Geneva, there was the final presentation for this car, and this is a close-to-production model. So you can see that the show car that was shown in Qatar before didn't really change. And this is also our task, because we want to kind of, we're fighting with the engineers. So in this process, the cars are more and more coming to real life and are kind of workable. They're working, and not just fantasies. And in this project, the initial design and the idea behind it could be really preserved. And then, in a nice environment, you have like these driving experiences for the journalists. There were 14 cars, and they went all the way to Geneva, all electric, because this car is a plug-in hybrid. And it went uphill and downhill, all electric, and we get really good feedback on the car. Okay, that's basically it. As you have heard, this was really about the design process and not about numbers, and I hope it was interesting to you. We have some questions. Yes, please.
Hello. Thank you for the nice presentation.
Hello, thank you.
And I just want to have some idea. You are giving a value to the new existing product. How much time you will take to design one new product?
It takes us about 48 months from design kick-off to the start of production. So we can do this in a really short time. Sometimes when we do a show car, we have just a couple of weeks. So that's also when I've shown this virtual reality model that is mostly used then for show car films and movies and adverts, because you don't have so much time. But normally it takes 48 months.
I had the same question.
You showed the picture in the end where there was the test drive through the Alps. Could you explain a little bit about user testing during the development phase or even previous to that?
Testing is done pretty much before. So this was a drive for the journalists, so they can experience the car, they can touch it and drive it and actually write their articles. Testing is done, of course, before. So I couldn't talk much about Arctic, how the Arctic has influence on the design. But Arctic, I mean, how cold does it get here? Like max? 45? So that's pretty much the range where these cars should work. So from really harsh desert conditions to the Arctic. So we do like ESP testing on frozen lakes. So you have a whole region that where there's test drivers living that live from these test drives. So there's as a global design company in cars, these cars have to work pretty much everywhere. But there's some points you need to take into account. For example, it's like when you have LED lights, it's a pretty cold light. Yeah, when you have halogen lights or xenon, it's much warmer. So, I mean, it could mean that with LED lights, the screen of the headlights actually freezes. So you need to make sure that this doesn't happen. But normally it's taken into account, and normally these cars should work everywhere. And yeah, to your question, sorry, it's actually after the design is finished, then it's checked that these things are working.
And what about the user testing? So the kind of user insights into the process, needs, ergonomics, all that kind of testing.
Well, it's not. I mean, I'm talking about really like about my job as an exterior designer, and that's what I thought would be interesting to show really the process from my side. Of course, we have ergonomics that are checked. It applies more to the interior design, but it's pretty much. I mean, of course, we make up our minds about that. Yeah. So it's more a question of what kind of character you want to give a car. If you have like some sort of SUV, yeah. I mean, you know, okay, how much coupe appeal do I want to give this car so that the passengers in the rear seat can still sit comfortably, yeah. But there are other guys, there are engineers that check that, yeah. And there's also marketing, there's sales that kind of give us a certain package. So we have a really, like, we can't do what we want. We really have a tight kind of package. So little freedom. And with this little freedom we have, especially on a production car, kind of need to make sure it has the best design.
Thank you.
My question is about external involvement in your design process. Do you work with external designers, for example, like other consultants from different companies, or like students in design schools and the rest? And how much involvement is a Finnish design companies involved in your design process? And then my second question is, do you drive a Volkswagen car? And the last one, can your company donate one of those cars to me so that I can advertise in this region?
Okay, I didn't get the last one, but let me start with the first one. This was about how much influence we have from external studios. Little, to be honest, because most of the design is done in-house. We have cooperation projects with kind of certain different universities, but this is kind of a benefit for both, yeah, for the students. So we supervise projects they are doing in school. We're giving kind of lectures on automotive design, and we are looking for talents. What was the second question? Volkswagen, yes I do. It's a leasing car. And the third one, I didn't quite...
Yeah, my third question was, can your company donate one of those new models to me so that I can drive here
so
in
this
this region?
So you can feel the pleasure and enjoyment of a Volkswagen car.
And also advertise it in this region.
Okay. Okay, I will ask about that, maybe. Let's see.